Welcome to the Crazy Chicken People podcast. If you're crazy about chickens, then you're in the right place. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Chicken People podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about a topic that has been in the back of my mind for a while now, and I'm reminded of this every time I step into either of the coops we keep our big chickens in. And I've debated with myself a bit on whether or not this was something worth doing an episode on, or if it was just something that was unique to my flock that maybe nobody else was really dealing with. And then I saw this thread on Reddit where people were talking about it, and it seemed that there was a lot of questions, a lot of opinions, but not a lot of help for those wondering what to do next. And what really grabbed my attention was that some people, and I took it they were probably newer chicken owners based on how the conversation was going, were questioning if this was a problem they would have to solve by getting rid of some of their chickens. So when I saw that, I figured, okay, I'm not the only one dealing with this, and there's people out there thinking that they might need to eat their pet over it. So I really need to dig in, find out what the root of the problem is, so that I can better understand my own chickens' behaviors, some of the issues I'm having with them, and hopefully help some other people out that might be dealing with the same thing. And that question is, why do some of my hens peck me every time I walk into the chicken run? And in my case specifically, why is it that when Bandit, who is a super sweet chicken, she loves to be near me, she loves being held and pet, she comes running when she sees me, but when she pecks my hand, grabbing a big old chunk of skin, it somehow feels like a show of affection. But when Floppy, my cream leg bar hen that lives in a different coop, and who is just generally, we'll say she's got kind of a bad attitude, when she jumps up and takes a stab at my hand every time I see her, it does feel like an act of aggression. I know there's a difference between these two bites. I can feel it when they grab me, and even more so, I can see it in their actions after the bite. So in today's episode, we're going to dissect the different reasons that some chickens might peck at you, how you can deal with it in the case of aggressive pecking, and the things that you can do to build trust with your chickens and hopefully avoid any of these negative interactions in the future. So to start off, why is your chicken seemingly trying to take a bite of you? Well, chickens are curious creatures. They're interested in just about everything, especially a new thing that might show up in their space. And for the most part, when they go to check it out, they're doing that with their beak. If you were to just watch a chicken as it makes its way around, it might seem like they're just randomly pecking at everything with no real intent, but that is definitely not the case. Animals, and especially prey animals, are very efficient with their actions, and almost everything is done with a purpose. This includes pecking. If you've ever fed a chicken from your hand, it probably looks like they're just plunging their beak into that pile of whatever it is you might be giving them and grabbing what they find. But if you were to slow it down, and I actually did this, I took a slow motion video of Bandit eating some scratch out of my hand, you can see that every movement is done with intent. It's a pretty cool thing to see in slow-mo. As fast as it appears they might be eating, there's actually a pause between each bite. They stop, look over what's available, and carefully select that piece they want. Even cracking it open or breaking down what they've grabbed, manipulating it with their tongue. If a piece of it breaks off and falls back in, they'll quickly grab that exact piece back from your hand. It's a pretty awesome thing to see. I would totally recommend trying to get a video of this and checking it out. Or if you like, I've actually posted that video of Bandit on my Instagram. The reason I mention that is just to illustrate that to a chicken, each peck is done for a reason and with a specific purpose. Usually it's to eat something, but there's a lot of other reasons too. It may be to set another chicken straight, remind them of their place in the pecking order, and it may be to see what exactly is this new thing that got dropped into my run. Taking some pecks at a new log or maybe an herb you've tossed in there that they've never seen before. But it could also be your toe that they just saw for the first time because you happen to wear sandals into the coop today. And this is where problems can potentially develop. A couple of innocent pecks out of curiosity that maybe catch you off guard. It causes you to quickly pull away or to jump back. You might even instinctually shout something. Any of these reactions by you may be misinterpreted by your chicken, just as you misinterpreted that peck. And they could very well see this as a sign of aggression. And in that instant, without any intention, that chicken may now see you as a threat, possibly leading to aggressive pecking or just them now being fearful of you, depending on their personality. And it's going to leave you feeling like you just had a very negative interaction with your chicken, which is not what any of us want. So let's first understand some of the different reasons your chicken might be pecking at you. And we'll start off with the most positive, which is because they love you. Yes, some of those little pecks are just their way of showing affection. I mentioned how Bandit will peck and kind of pull at my hand. And initially you might think, well, like, why is she biting you? But I also know that she always runs up to me. She wants to be held. She actually prefers to eat out of my hand than anything thrown on the ground. And these are all ways that a chicken will show affection and show their trust towards their person. So I know that there's no reason for me to think that her little nips are anything more than her just wanting to show me that she cares. And I actually think that the tugging on my hand is her pulling it closer to her, probably hoping that there's something tasty in there. I've even seen chickens kind of do this with each other, using very light, almost like little kisses rather than pecks. It kind of looks like they're grooming each other. In fact, I've actually watched Madonna do this with Brock. He'll kind of lean his head back, expose his neck to her, and she gives these just very light little pecks on his neck. I swear they look like kisses, and he absolutely loves it. And you can see that he feels totally safe and that he trusts that she's not going to hurt him. Now, another peck you may receive, and this is what I get from Floppy when I visit her run, it's a bit more aggressive. It doesn't exactly hurt, but I can definitely feel it. And it's done very quickly. She runs up to me, jumps up, pecks at my hand, but then she just kind of stands there and looks at me. There's no further aggression or signs of fear. And while she's not a super loving bird, I don't get the sense that the peck was anything more than curiosity. In fact, the more I thought about it, I really think that she's jumping up at my hand because she thinks there's something in there, maybe thinks that that's going to get me to throw her some treats. But I think that because I reacted in a way that she could easily interpret as something to be scared of, and I'll admit, at first, I did not do a good job here. I'm sure I jumped up, I probably shouted at her. I definitely did something that made her feel like maybe she needed to fear me. And I think that that has caused her pecks of curiosity to turn into something a little bit more serious. It's also possible that this could be her way of, putting me in my place in the pecking order. Chickens will absolutely do this with each other, as I'm sure you've seen. The quick peck, usually just one, to remind another chicken like, hey, you're in my space, or I get the first crack at the food. And they will sometimes try this with people as well. I don't think this is actually the case with Floppy because I know that she sits really low on the pecking order, but it's possible that she sees me as the new low man on the totem pole and she's just like, hey, back of the line, dude. I can't be totally sure between those things, but I do feel pretty strongly that it's not out of malice. There's never further attacks after that first peck. Her body language isn't threatening, but it also tells me that she's not totally comfortable around me. So while I don't exactly think that I've got a situation where, she feels she needs to attack me, we're still a long ways off from where I want to be with her. But not so far that I have to put on leather gloves or anything just to go and give her a checkup. And the truth is, chickens don't intentionally just attack to be mean. Their instinct is to do whatever it takes to just keep surviving. And that doesn't really leave any time to plan attacks or pranks on others. I know there are some birds that just seem to be born with a bad attitude and kind of seem like bullies. Maybe you see them regularly being the aggressor within the flock, but just like with human bullies, this is usually a sign of some fear or some insecurity tied to the resources that they need. And if that's something that you are seeing in your flock, it's worth doing an evaluation of your coop setup just to make sure that the food and water is accessible for everybody. There's no overcrowding. They're not getting overly bored. These are all things that can cause stress and eventually aggressive behavior within your flock. But if you're dealing with a chicken that she's not looking for kisses and is clearly not showing you love or just wondering what that smell on your shoe is, but is taking repeated aggressive attacks at you, and maybe showing some of that body language like the raised neck feathers, the hard flapping of the wings just before a strike, repeated strikes, even a pretty savage stare down right after the attack. I don't know. That last one, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I swear that I have seen Jeffrey look at me like, "You want some more of that?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I don't. I want to be cool with you." But how do you make things cool between you and a chicken who, for some reason, perceives you as a threat? I know what the common answer is. I know what you'll likely see if you go onto Google and search for how to stop an aggressive chicken, but I don't subscribe to the idea that you can earn an animal's trust or love or friendship or whatever you want to call it by striking them back. Now, we're getting into the territory of stuff that's really just my opinion, but it is based on my experiences, both successful and unsuccessful, and the experiences of people whose opinion on things like this I value and I know put real work into building relationships with their pet chickens. And so I'll try to sell you on this line of thinking by asking, do you think that hitting or kicking or grabbing a chicken that is scared of you and holding it upside down by its feet is really going to build any trust or give that chicken a reason to feel comfortable around you? Or will that just be another reason for that chicken to fear you? And maybe out of fear, it'll think twice before attacking again. But is that really the relationship that you want to build with your chicken? I'm not here to judge, and I'm not trying to convince you that what I'm suggesting is the only right way to remedy this issue. But if you're like me and you want all your chickens to feel safe around you, then I do have some suggestions, some things you can do to work with your birds and try to build a relationship based on trust rather than fear. And it's not like real hard. The work itself is little more than just spending time with your flock, which should be enjoyable. But you will need to be willing to put in that time and probably tolerate some difficult situations where, maybe you get pecked a few more times than you like. And you might leave that coop a few times, maybe a lot of times, kind of feeling defeated, like it's just not working. But you have to go into this knowing that there's not a quick fix. So you focus on small improvements, be mindful of exactly what it is that might seem to trigger the negative behavior so that you can try to avoid those actions the next time. And look, I know that's easier said than done. I mean, I still can't even walk into Brock or Jeffrey's coop without getting some sort of attack on me. I'm really struggling to find common ground with them. But roosters, I have found, do tend to be a little bit more difficult to get through to, and it might take a little more work. And while most of what I'm going to go over can absolutely be applied to hens or roosters, I am focusing specifically on working with your hens today. So let's say you're heading out to the Cooper run and you're looking for a fresh start with this particular chicken. Before even getting in there with them, I would recommend doing what you can to make sure that that area is as peaceful and as calm as it can be. I know there's certain things that are kind of out of our control, but barking dogs, other people, or kids being around, if you can avoid those things and really just go for the quietest setting that you can achieve, that's going to set a good atmosphere for the work ahead. And then carry that with you into the coop. I say coop, really the run is where you want to be so that you can provide plenty of space, but you want to come in just as peacefully as you can, find a spot to sit down, get on their level for a bit. We're trying to convince this little tiny chicken that we pose no threat, and that can be easier to do when you're not towering over them. So if you can just sit down with them for a little while and try talking to your chickens in a very soothing way. I mean, I'm not trying to sound crazy here. I know that you can't talk them into anything, but they will pick up on your calm tones and they're going to react to that. Just like they would react if you were to come in that coop shouting and jumping around. That's going to send them to a frenzy. They're probably going to start shouting and jumping around because chickens are very reactive to the environment around them. So just give yourself the best chance you can to connect with them by making sure that everything around is just very calm, the most peaceful setting that you can create. And if you're in there and your focus is on one or two hens in particular, you're still going to have all the other chickens in there. They will likely want some of your attention and you can't just push them off. But as you sit back and let them come to you, even if the problem chicken doesn't really start coming up right away, and they probably won't, at least they can see you interacting with the other chickens and they can start to get that feeling that you're not a threat. And this might even give you a chance to pick up on some of their triggers. It may be that another bird getting your attention is actually causing this problem chicken to feel slighted. Or you might notice that other chickens are actually keeping her back from getting your attention that she does want. There can be competition between chickens for resources, even if that resource is your affection. And that might be causing some stress that's leading to these attacks. And for this reason, even though it's kind of contrary to what other people might say, I actually recommend not bringing in treats those first few times you're doing this. You will eventually build to that, which we'll talk about here in a second. But initially, it might be best to leave those out of the equation, as it could just instantly create this competition again to see who's going to get those treats first. Especially if the problem chicken is being kind of standoffish, she sees the other hens coming in, maybe eating from your hand. She's going to want some of that too, but she might feel the need to go after them aggressively. And this could set back any progress that you are making. If it's possible to get some one-on-one time with this chicken, maybe the others can be let loose for a little while or enclosed in the coop for a bit while you're working with her. This could create an environment where she doesn't feel like she has to compete for your attention in any way, and this would likely be the best way to get started if you can. In that environment, you can definitely bring some treats in with you right off the bat. I would say don't expect or even try to get her eating out of your hand right away, but rather spread some on the ground. Try to find a distance that she's comfortable with getting close to you, not where she feels like she has to just run in, grab something, and then back away. And with time, this should start leading her to feeling safe enough that she can get a little closer to you. You can start bringing those treats in closer, and eventually, hopefully, do get her to start eating out of your hand, which is a huge step. Now, what I just described in a minute or two may very well take days or really weeks of continuing to work with her like this. But if you stay consistent and ideally kind of make this sort of a routine for you both, where you do this about the same time each day or every other day, whatever you can do, this is going to help her start to get used to this interaction and just feeling much more comfortable each time as she does begin to expect this. Now, this is going to take some time, and it might end up testing your patience a bit. You may very well get attacked a few times and have to resist that instinct to punish or to scold your hen, because this is only going to cause setbacks. So keep in mind that at their core, chickens do not have the desire to be aggressive with you or to create any conflict. They really just want to feel safe. They want to feel cared for, all the things that we're trying to provide them anyways. So it's up to us as their caretakers to create that atmosphere for them, both physically by giving them a safe place to live, plenty of space, food, water, but also to give them emotional safety. Your chicken has thousands of years of instinct inside it, telling them that everything is out there to eat them and that the world is a dangerous place. It's really easy to accidentally scare a chicken into believing that you are a danger to them, and it can take a lot of work to undo that. Now, I know I didn't reveal any groundbreaking information here, but that's because at the end of the day, all you really need to do is try to understand what exactly it is that's causing your chicken to feel this way, causing it to feel like it needs to defend itself, and then eliminate those things from your interactions and be really sweet to them. They're kind of needy like that. But when you put in the work and you see it pay off, it's going to be totally worth it. The satisfaction of knowing that you had this problem and that you were able to go out there and get on a level with your chicken where you could really understand it, you're going to see something at some point that really tells you oh my gosh, it was this the whole time. It really is a great feeling. And, not only are you going to have a better relationship with that chicken, but you're going to learn a better way to interact with all of your chickens. And really, it should improve your relationship with all of them going forward, which is awesome. So with that, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Hope you all have a great week, and I'll be looking forward to the next one.